welcome to the Gloss Box. My name is Monica and I'm here with gorgeous Nadia, my partner in crime. And as you can probably see, we have a few different accents going on here, and I'm here from Australia. And Nadia?
I'm here in Chicago, but my accent is totally not Illinois accent, but still we're on two different continents, and we're connecting here.
Absolutely. So today we wanted to discuss a book, or a couple of books really, but one especially that you've been reading, Nadia. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the book that we're talking about?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and it's by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And the book is pretty much talking about how to recondition yourself to be able to manifest pretty much whatever you want, but to be, I think really when it comes down to it, is how to be a happy person and how to be able to let go of all these shells that are on top of us. And the guy is a scientist, so there's a lot of science in that book in terms of neurology and brain waves and things like that. But I think for all of us who are dealing with manifesting, with magic, with the universe, whatever you want to call it, there is something in this book. And I think that what particularly got me, and I know that me and you discussed this before, was the concept of allowing ourselves to move beyond our past, and how important it is to heal our past, but also to be able to let go of it so we don't relive that experience and we stay in the same place. So I think that this is why I really this is what really, really got me thinking about stuff and wanted to create our first Gloss Fox Club
video.
Yeah, we have a TV channel. It's going to be a TV channel. So, and talk about that. So yeah, that's kind of what got me to that book. And then you mentioned another book.
So it's called Loving What Is. And Byron Casey basically asks 4 questions to really deal with your past in a very strong way, but also, like you were referring to, closing off your past but not reliving it. She helps you kind of see it in a different way, where you actually, one of the ways she describes it, and I actually love this analogy because we were talking about it before, is that usually you remember the event of something that happened, like in a form of an image or a picture or a video. And she was saying what happens is we stick like all these sticky notes all over it with our thoughts, our feelings around this event. And really what she does in the way that she presents her book and the 4 questions that she uses as a guide is it's really about pulling all of those sticky notes out and really being able to see the picture as it actually is in reality. And by doing that, you actually pull your way from the suffering of all of the meaning that you've added to that event. So it's really fantastic in that way, which is something that you were talking about with your book as well, because it's about strongly dealing with the past or even the present really, but not having to relive it and rehash situations over and over and over again. So that's why I thought it would be a really complementary book to what we were discussing.
Yeah, I like that. I like the post-it notes idea. Like it's so visual. It's incredible. The book that I am sort of hooked up, the Dispenza one, he is talking about, I think there are a couple of important concepts or points to kind of think about how do we live our life and how do we manifest and how we communicate with this consciousness that can create anything. And he calls it the quantum field, or it's the quantum field theory. But what he says is that we are not necessarily, we don't have to be bound by time and space and location, but this is how we are cultured. This is what we know. We're always,
So
shit is set up, you know, our appointments are set up. We have to be on a certain time. Everything is calculated by certain intervals. And we are in that cage of perception. But if we can remove those and just be consciousness, just be mind, we can communicate with the quantum field. And what he says is that whenever we are experiencing something from the past that was a difficult, a traumatic, or maybe something that made us be a certain way, the experience is so strong that our brain stops thinking, I am here talking to Monica, right? Our brain becomes so involved in it that we physically relieve that experience. We start feeling it's like, you know, people say that if they do, when you do drugs or if you do LSD, you have flashbacks. So your body and your mind go into the state of reliving that experience. So now we have anxiety, we have fear, we might have, you know, become hot and rushes and whatnot. And we are vibrating with this experience. And what happens, and this is not his, you know, concept, it's all, we always talk about it, we talk about manifesting, is that the quantum field realizes your vibration. So you're vibrating on a certain level, and it wants to give you what you're doing, what you are. So it brings that to you. And many times we have people who start going to situations of anxiety and stress, and then they start developing all kinds of weird disease and ailments and on all kinds of shit because they are in the stress. They're creating, they're manifesting their future. And another thing that I think that he is talking about that was like, this is, I think, why I really got into this book, is that he says, I took some notes, that the importance of being in a state of gratitude, but if we can have gratitude signature to something that's already happened. So to start being grateful for a future that hasn't happened yet. But if we can be in the state of gratitude, with our heart space truly expanded, with love, with compassion, with hopefulness, in positive state of mind, and open up to a possibility of a beautiful future, that future is going to come to us. And then the more, and this is so much magic, right? The more you can be focused on what you want to manifest and be very specific in the details of it, it will happen. This is exactly what will happen. The universe will give it to you exactly like that. And I thought it was fantastic, and I really like how he described it, because it put a lot of things together. People tell you all the time, you got to be grateful, you got to be grateful, you got to be grateful. But what he's doing is he's taking it a step forward. Don't be grateful for what you already have. Be grateful for what hasn't happened yet. And by so, open the possibility, because there are possibilities for everything at every given moment. Open the ones that are positive and are beneficial and are beautiful, and allow yourself to accept those.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You know, I mean, you know, but a lot of other people don't know, is that I am doing Kundalini yoga teacher training. And I really love the Kundalini technology, because it talks about exactly that. So it talks about how your aura, as part of your subtle body, carries a lot of these negative thoughts, feelings, and even past relationships, and what you made mean about past relationships, like that whole world that you were just talking about, you know, carrying your past along into your future. And of course, if your aura is kind of that messed up, then there's really no room to allow things to come in. And as you said, like, attract positive or even future events for things to manifest in the way that you want. And so Kundalini has actually got, or Kundalini yoga specifically, has actually got a lot of exercises and about opening your heart to acceptance. But one of the most simple ones that I just love, and it's just so simple, is basically a Kriya. It's called the Curtain Kriya, where you actually just clear your aura day by day, moment by moment. And it is so simple. So you can do it in a seated position. Should I take you through it?
Yeah, of course. Why not? Do it.
So, okay, let's do it. So you can sit in a seated position. So you can sit in a chair or you can sit on the ground, or with, whatever's easier for you. And you put your hands facing forward on top of your lap. However, your hands are like this. And there is a spoken mudra that we say, and movements along with that. So you start with sa, and then you move into your middle finger, ta, then your ring finger, na, and then your pinky finger, ma. So it's sa, ta, na, ma. And the way that the Kirtan Kriya goes is that you got even shots, and you can first say it out loud, then you say it whispered, then you double that time. So if you do 2 out loud, 2 whispered, then you do 4 minutes in quietness, and then you start with the whispering again for another 2 minutes, and then out loud for another 2 minutes. Yeah. So that's an example of how you can do it.
Just to make sure that I understand what you're talking about. Yeah. So you would do the actual movement, the kriya.
The movement. Yes.
With the mudra.
Correctly.
And you would say it out loud for about 2 minutes.
Yes.
And then you would whisper it for 2 minutes.
Sa, ta, na, ma. Yep.
And then you would do it internally.
Correct. But still doing the movements, but you're not saying it out loud.
And for how long would that be?
4 minutes.
For 4 minutes. And then you'll come back and whisper.
Correct. For 2 minutes.
For 2 minutes. And then you would just say it out loud for 2 minutes.
Correct.
And do you do backwards too? I'm just curious.
Nope.
Just forward. Just the same. And is it important to be with your eyes closed, with your eyes open, in a certain...
It's always a good question. Yeah. The environment isn't as important. I do it before going to bed sometimes, especially if I find that I've got too much going on and I can't relax, or I feel anxious in any sort of way about an event that's coming up. So I'll literally close my eyes and just whisper or say it in my head, and touching the tips of my fingers. What is important is that you do have your eyes closed, and that is because a lot of the work that we do in Kundalini is about going inwards and contemplating inwards, and which is different to other types of yoga, because it's not about comparison or competing with other people. So it's really about looking inwards and getting the answers from within yourself.
So basically, you don't kriya and drive.
Yeah, no, probably not the best idea. Although I have done it.
Because I think, and from my experience with Shakta Tantra, when you start doing this often, your body and mind sink into it, and they remember. So you start, if you do it enough, you just start touching those points, and you have an internal switch.
Absolutely.
Like a muscle memory almost, which is an incredible thing.
And because you're saying it verbally as well, what they talked about is that the meridians at the top of your tongue, and a lot of the way that the Kundalini technology works is by saying any sort of verbal mantras, it's actually hitting certain points at the top of your mouth that actually can activate your pituitary gland and other glands. So that is the reason of saying some of those out loud as well, and those certain vowels vibrate as you're actually doing them too. There is thought, I think, with one of these that you actually think you can visualize like coming in, and so down into the crown and out through your third eye as you're saying sa, ta, na, ma. But as my Kundalini teacher says, like, it's not 100% essential. So, but that's something that you can build and, you know, think about that as well. So bringing into a sense the consciousness from above and projecting it out in front of you. So that is a really good thing if you're looking at manifesting, of course, because it's actually drawing from the universe and putting it into your consciousness and into the now, the world in front of you, so to say. Yeah.
That's very cool. I know that the book that the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, he guides meditations as well to get to a state where you can release those things and be able to ask the quantum field to manifest what you want. And he also is talking about chakras. He prefers, I think, to call it energy centers, because chakras carry a certain, people have ideas about what it is. You either like it or you don't like it and whatnot. He called it energy center. And he said something that I was like, this is amazing. He says, consciousness moving through neurological tissue becomes mind. So in this sense, our energy centers are neurological tissue, but it can be any, like if you try to heal yourself or to do like any kind of tissue, when we bring consciousness to that, when we start paying attention to that, it becomes mind. And this is where things can start changing. This is how we can change our mind, right? How we be to how we are. And he says that we are, you know, we have the mind and the thinking in the head, and then we have feelings in the body, and feelings in the body, negativity and whatnot, you experience it. We have a reaction to it. We don't, sometimes we don't know what we call it, but you know, some people, he likes to give the mother-in-law example, but some men, you know, you tell them you're going to dinner with your mother-in-law, they're going to have an emotional reaction to it, and they're not going to even like, you know, they might not need a name for it. It's going to be just mother-in-law. But one of the things that I do, or I really believe, or in helping to move away from places that suck us, right, in our mind, is tapping. And I talked about it before.
Yes,
but this is something that I started practicing from my work with Denise Duffel Thomas, and I kind of took it. But one of the things, the easiest is the karate chop point, but you can do any point really, especially because I do it like if I'm driving. Right, I'm driving and I'm getting pissed off and I'm thinking about all the stuff that I need to do. Blah, blah, blah. So you can say things like, even though it's really stressful right now, I fully and completely love and accept myself. So when that stuff coming up and it's work in progress and we paid attention, we already sort of, we made like a mention of it to ourselves. We said, was it like, oh, this situation has happened to me in the past and it's stressing me out, but I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a different person. I don't like feeling like that.
Yeah. But then I think it's also about accepting your reaction in that moment. Sometimes, you know, we then sit there and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or, you know, there's a lot of should'ves, could'ves. And sometimes it's just even accepting that certain reaction in that moment and not making it mean anything, and not making it mean anything about yourself in that moment, just because you're starting to get overwhelmed or you're starting to get anxious. You know, we all go through it. some in varying degrees.
Well, it's very Zen Buddhist of you, I think. You always talk about like you need, you just look at everything as like a body of water, and then when the waves come, just observe the waves and let them be what they are. But I think that it's part of the like this greater work is to be able to say, I have these feelings right now, and I'm gonna take them as they are, and I'm not gonna make them anything that they're not. And it doesn't mean that I am blah 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 blah. And in fact, what he's talking about is that we have this dichotomy, and this is what creates a lot of unhappiness in our lives. And this is what sends mixed signals, I guess, in my own interpretation to the quantum field, is that there is our personality with all the, the flaws, the attractions, the lust, the things that we want to experience. And then there is the persona that we present to everybody else, because we have this idea that is being developed since very young age of what we think people want to see,
want us to be,
or want us to be, or accept us. And this is like, that part of our brain that knew early on that if I'm not going to be loved, they're going to throw me out of the village into the desert, and I'm going to die on my own there, right? So a lot of people live their lives without really being who they are. And when they start questioning that unhappiness of like, why am I unhappy in this shell that I created, people start freaking out, because by being in our shell, we accept other people's issues and or ways of being. Like, if they're bitching and moaning all the time, and we just say yeah, and then we get home and we're like, oh my God, I just feel like my heart has been sucked out, my blood and my energy for the last 45 minutes, because I just spent it with this family member, that this is what they do all the time. But the minute you start saying, no, I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to live like that, or maybe I don't want to go on Prozac, I just don't want to do what I'm doing, people start freaking out, and people try to put you back into that, because if you change, it means that it throws off their shit. But as long as we have this dissonance between who we truly are and what we present or what's trying to live, this is where this unhappiness lives. But the less we have that gap about what we are, what we present, and how we live our life, the happier we are. And I think that signal to the quantum field becomes much, much clearer, and we can be much happier in our true nature, as opposed to what we think the environment wants, or the environment sort of dictates for us to be normal.
Yeah, so true. So true. It's funny. I was watching a program the other day, yesterday actually, program here in Australia, and they had a guest on their show called Constance Hall, and she is just one of these people that's just brutally honest. She's on Instagram. She doesn't always show the beautiful parts of her. Actually, she has, which I thought was super interesting, she has a lot of occasions where she has, the beautiful glammed photo of her like the night before, and then she's got like the wake up photo of the morning after, or the do you know what I mean? Like the going out photo where her hair is messy and like she's not all glammed up, and just kind of really being raw and in a sense being just open and vulnerable with who she is. And they were talking about how her openness has obviously gotten her a lot of attention, both positive and negative. But she's subsequently, since she started that account, written 2 books. I think it's called like I'm Still a Queen or I'm Being a Queen. But it's just the actual openness that she talks about. Like there was a post that she put on just recently. I'm just trying to remember what it was called or how many days ago it was actually. No, it was just a couple of days ago. And and it's a snippet from her book, and the headline says, "Has a man ever asked you if his dick smells?" And I'm just like, oh wow, it's like, she's the type of person who's just so living in who she is and not
Apologetically.
unapologetically, and not trying to live in the persona that she thinks that she should be for everybody else to make them happy. And I could see exactly what you mean, because when I saw her yesterday on TV, I was just like, wow, give me some of what she's having. And I remember one of the hosts kind of talking, because she was talking about body image, and she goes, oh, how are you so confident? She's going like, I'm not confident. I just really believe in kind of faking it till you make it, because, I have children and I don't want them to be uncomfortable with their bodies growing up. And I'm just like, that is so true. We sometimes just need to fake it a little bit, and in a sense be grateful what could be,
Mm-hmm.
which is a form of faking it, and just live into that, because that is what she does on a daily basis. And her honesty and her vulnerability and being so close of a character in Instagram as she is in real life, I think is what actually is drawing people to her, and not the other way around, which sometimes I think we feel like we have to have this, beautiful curated life on Instagram. But the fact is, it's starting to get a bit boring. All your pics of Paris and, your jet are boring.
Yeah, or you took them from some library, and like where I can find them too, but I will refuse to put it. Listening to that and thinking about it, I think that this is the aspect of sort of the inner child, the only aspect of the inner child that I'm willing to engage with. And I apologize to anyone who's going to watch it, but I have issues with the inner child. It's been mentioned before in the past, but I think that when we are young and we're hopeful and we're imaginative, we can close our eyes and imagine incredible things, and we have much more happiness coming to us. And at the same time, we're naive and we're vulnerable and we are open to other people. And yes, we can be taken advantage of. But the older we get, the more we start building walls around it. And it's actually one of the things that I am deeply, deeply engaged with in my personal life, is that I am trying to open my heart space and come to situations vulnerable and open-minded, and admit that and be like, you know what, this is what I'm bringing to the conversation. So if you want to take advantage of it, you definitely can. And I'm not coming as an idiot. I will close myself off and I make a mental note, don't engage like that with this person anymore. But if not, this is like a place of honesty, and if people can participate in conversations from that place, then we can truly understand each other, and we can truly create some sort of sense of happiness and hopefulness. Because otherwise everybody is there with their fucking shields, right? And I wrote about it some time ago, and I actually reshared it on our Instagram, and it was about I am not a spiritual gangster. I don't want to fucking hustle. I don't want to be a badass. I don't want to, because, it's people put it out there, and it was very sort of fashionable, and it was very cool. And we kind of were like, oh yeah, spiritual gangster, and we all are hustling. It's my spiritual hustle. No, I don't want to be a gangster of any kind. I am, in fact, really like not a gangster. Like, no matter how you're gonna position me, I'm not that kind of person. But I'm here with my heart open, and I want to have honest conversations. And I truly want to be in a place where I'm not scared from a conversation. I'm okay with being brutally honest, because not everything that somebody says means that I did something bad, or I go automatically into my guilt tripping, into my shaming, into my own stories. But I can leave those stories and be as myself. And if somebody has an issue, we can discuss that issue, and we will be mindful about it. And we can also understand where, like, it's me, I'm feeling a certain way about it. And just because I realize that, it means that I am responding to the situation through my own bullshit, and this is not the person's situation. And at least I can say, this is how I feel right now. And I have it with my partner. This is like something that we've been engaging in. I am feeling a certain way, and I understand that you didn't do anything, but I'm feeling this way, and this is why I'm feeling it. And now we can either do something about it, or maybe we're not going to do something about it. But I am honest, and I can share with you the space, and you're honest with me, and you can hold the space for me. And just by the fact that we were able to communicate about it, and it's not being like put into some drawer, or we both have an idea, imagining shit, or looking through the shame and the guilt and past mistakes and whatnot,
or trying to fix each other,
or trying to fix each other. And I find that when you come from this place of vulnerability, you'll accelerate your rate of personal development and spiritual development and alignment with who you are, in beautiful ways.
Yeah, it's so true, because I feel like being vulnerable, and especially quite emotional, I find that my intuition is a lot stronger than people who aren't. So, and that vulnerability and emotion, I was always told as a child and so forth that I was weak because I was so emotional, and I would read too much into things and into what people were thinking. And realistically, they actually were thinking that way. A lot of the things that I was thinking about people were actually true, and they just didn't want to be honest and admit to it. And so what I started to realize is that that emotion that I had was actually, in a sense, connected to my intuition, and it's actually a gift and not a weakness in any way. It actually gives me strength. So it's interesting in the way that we can start to perceive things as well, because some things that we do see as a flaw, or as a character flaw, actually probably is one of our greatest strengths. It's just in the way that we think about it and what others make us think about who we are as well. And that's why I'm really big, and what we were talking about earlier, is not being so tough on yourself, not criticizing yourself, because you always do the best in your life with the information that you have available to you in that moment.
Right.
Because if you had the hindsight, you wouldn't have done it. If you knew, you would never have done it. And I think that's kind of human nature. Like, if you know you're going to have a negative outcome by taking certain steps before you took them, you would just go, no, I'm not going to do that. Potentially the outcome is not going to be worth it. But I suppose that's one of the positive things about living life as well, because sometimes those hard things, those things that we do in spite of the fear, sometimes can also get us our biggest rewards in life. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. How we always say we're work in progress, and it's different steps. It doesn't matter how how deep you go.
Sorry.
No worries. Maybe it's a good time to finish up. What do you think, Monica? I think me and you, we can do it for hours. Doesn't matter the different continents. We'll do it for hours. So
that's so true.
Well, thank you for hooking up with me and going through all the technical craziness that we went before. That took us like 2 hours to get onto recording.
No problem. And I can't stop coughing now.
Okay, so love you, babe, and thank you everyone who's going to be watching it, throwing it into the quantum field, and may people enjoy and benefit from it and come back. And we would love to hear what you want to hear about, or just we can endlessly chit chat and share with you what we're going through too.
Yeah, perfect. I agree, 100%. Bye. Love you too, babe.
Love you. Bye.
See you, lady.